What's up, everybody? Today we are checking out the Marshall Plexi from Softube. Now, this is a sim of the Marshall Plexi, and I mean, come on, if you're a rock guitar player, you know what the Plexi is. And this is, I believe, officially licensed by Softube.
If not, they're gonna get a hell of a lawsuit for that logo. I'm sure they got it.
Anyway, it's great to play with an officially licensed Marshall Plexi. And we were playing with this a little bit earlier. We got Issac, editor extraordinaire from Gear Gods, on the guitar today. Hey, Issac, how's it going, dude?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Not too bad. Happy to have you here. Show us what we got here. We're going to just go for the 4 different inputs and see what that's all about first. So just give us a few chords there, dude. Okay, so we got bright. Cool. And we've got we can jump these as well. Like you can do this like you could on, say, a real Plexi. Kind of digging that. And on a real amp, you can do that with the 4 inputs. You can kind of jump them and get just a little bit more gain going in and out of the amp, and that's really cool.
And you know, people are always like, oh, well, why would you get an amp sim when you can just play through a real tube amp? And that's true a lot of the time, but a Plexi is really hard to come by. This isn't like, this is just something you can just pick up.
Exactly, like especially a vintage Plexi, which I'm sure this is modeled after, is going to be, several $1,000s. This plugin's on sale for $99 right now, so that definitely gets you in the ballpark. Now, it's pretty straightforward controls. I mean, like, it's definitely way too many knobs for a bass player, but for most guitar players, should be able to figure this out. So the first thing we want to do is we want to do what's called the dime Plexi and just crank everything to 10 and see what happens with this. So you want to let her rip there, Issac? Now let's do something a little bit, maybe a little bit more tame, but we're gonna throw a hardware overdrive on in front of this just to give it a little bit more grit. Let's see what happens here. Let her rip, Issac. That's pretty sweet right there. I really like that, actually. Now, here's something really cool. Can you put that on a single coil and just play gently? Just show how versatile this amp is. Cool. Now, that's the thing about Plexis. I mean, like, it's not like pristine, clean, or ultra high gain. It's not like a modern metal amp at all. It's definitely, kind of somewhere in the middle there.
This is literally before a gain knob happened. Like, it doesn't have one if you want it to distort.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
That's why the dimed Plexi sound was a thing, because to make it distort, they just rolled everything all the way up to 10.
Oh yeah, it's like you watch the old videos of, like, say, like Judas Priest's first performance on the BBC. They've got a couple of Plexis and they're just cranked, right? And they were so loud that the TV crew actually put carpet up in front of the 4x12s just because they were just so deafening, So, and that was the thing. It was like that was the thing. It's like you needed to crank the amp up to get the proper sustain on the guitars. This is definitely this kind of amp. Now, if we pull the volumes back a little bit more, we're gonna go try and get something a little more clean there, and we'll take the jumped inputs off. Let her rip there, Issac. Let's see what we got. Okay, we'll get a bit more brightness on that. That's nice. Cool. Now, one thing I would just want to show here is we're going to crank the inputs back up there. Can you just show us, like, just how much spank this amp has, like, in terms of playing dynamically? Yeah, and that's the thing, I've talked with Trey about this, I've talked to Warren Hewitt about this, and it's all about the response of the amp sim. Does it respond like a real amp? And I gotta say, I think we're starting to get really into the territory now where the sims are actually starting to play like a real amp. And I think that's just awesome.
I think at this point, most manufacturers are focusing a lot more on that because the sounds have gotten incredibly close it's hard to nail the feel with ones and zeros.
That's true. That's true. And for the longest time, it's been either just super clean or super dirty. And this is, starting to find a nice middle ground where you can play it expressively and you can just bite into the strings and get more grit as you would on a real Plexi. Of course, the real question comes down to how well does it sound in a mix? And of course, on this one, we've got Jackson Ward and John Suki from Strata Recording, and they're going to roll us through a full band mix. Let's check it out. That was pretty damn cool, actually. That worked out pretty well. So Trey wanted to bring something up.
Yeah, I think it's cool that people came up with so many little tricks to get the most amount of gain out of this amp. Because at one point, this was the king daddy. This was the most gain that you could get.
Right.
And people still wanted more, so they figured out how to jump the inputs, just crank everything up to 10, which I'm sure when Jim Marshall was building this thing, he wasn't like...
He had no idea what
he never thought that people would turn everything all the way up.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't imagine they would need that much more gain. And they've lived on in the digital realm. That's crazy.
I think that's super cool. Of course, we have a ton of presets to play as well. Just go ahead there for a minute. Ooh, that's kind of neat.
It only has one cab sim, it seems like, but it's got a bunch of different microphones
exactly.
and different things you can do.
So you've got basically a dynamic mics, which a 57 609 and an 87 for a room mic. Like if we crank that up, go ahead. Give you a little bit of depth there, but it's also got FET condensers.
I like that.
And then it's got tube condensers as well. U67. That's sweet. And you can pan these out. Let's try that. Hold on one sec here. And go ahead. All right, that is super cool. I absolutely love that room mic control though, just to give things a little bit of depth. I don't know how much I'd use that in a mix, but when it comes to just playing guitar, at your desk or whatever and noodling and whatnot, that's definitely a lot of fun. I think that's really great. I love the fact that the output of this is really simple too, so you're limited to just a couple choices, which is kind of the spirit of the Plexi to begin with, because you only had so many options. People had to get real creative with what they did with them, and that's why they learned how to jump the inputs and crank the living shit out of it and whatnot. that. And like, not many players still use Plexis live, except for maybe Yngwie Malmsteen, who has a wall of Plexi.
Well, he bought all of them. That's the problem. You can't get them anymore because he bought 150,000 of them and they're all gone.
Yeah, exactly. I saw him, you know, at Sweetwater Gear Fest there a couple of years ago, and he brought like most of them, and it was just the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I'm sure, you know, they really appreciated the show the next state over. Okay, so that's the Marshall Plexi from Softube.com. I got some links in the description below. It's only going for 99 bucks. Absolutely killer plugin for the price. What do you think, Trey?
I think it's pretty great, and I have gotten to play through a cranked Plexi.
So did I. We did the first GitCon, and that was a lot of fun. Thank you, Pete Thorne, for that idea. That was really cool.
I can't say that it quite matches the same experience of having it turned up all the way in a room, but I bet if you turned up your monitors loud enough, you might be able to get that same feeling rattling your nuggets. You know?
Yeah, it was pretty memorable. As far as experiences playing guitar go, that one was definitely something else.
I also stupidly did it without earplugs. I didn't realize that's what that everybody else was wearing earplugs. I thought the idea was to get the full force of it.
Oh God.
That was bad. That was a painful 30 seconds of my life. And I always wear earplugs, always wear hearing protection. Anyway, this is the same sound, but you know, controlled.
Of course, you know, the big question everybody wants to know is, does it gent? And so we got Isaac to pull out the 8-string here. Let's see what it does. Let it rip, Isaac.
It doesn't really.
Okay, so it definitely can't gent, not in a traditional sense, but it's kind of got its own thing going on, so who knows, we might have just come up with something new there. Anyway.
Grandpa gent, we invented it today.
Okay, fair enough. That I'll accept. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to check out Gear Gods and Riffified, because it's just absolutely freaking hilarious. And until next time, get out there and make some metal, motherfuckers!